Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now for today's episode, I'm going to be going over the Bradley Beal trade after we've had a couple weeks to kind of marinate in it and realize what it has really done for the league and what it's done for the Suns and all the teams that have been roped into this trade. So obviously a couple weeks ago the Phoenix Suns traded for Bradley Beal in a 3-team trade that involved Washington and Indiana. The Suns received Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, and Isaiah Todd. The Wizards got Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, Bilal Coulibaly, and a handful of picks spanning from 2024 to 2030, except for the 2029 pick. They didn't get a first or a second from there. And the Pacers in turn got Jarris Walker and 2 future second-round picks, one from the Wizards and one from the Suns. Now to start off, let's talk about what the Wizards got from this trade. Shortly after getting Chris Paul, the Wizards decided to flip Paul to the Warriors for Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, a 2027 second-round pick, and a 2030 protected first-round pick. In my opinion, that was a great move for the Wizards. They got more picks to help with their rebuild, and they kept their lineup younger. Jordan Poole seems like like he will have a bigger role with the Wizards than what he had with the Warriors. I'm not sure if that's the best part of getting Poole, but we'll have to see. The Wizards also had the cap space to get Poole's contract, and they won't have to pay people for a while due to trading Kristaps Porzingis to the Celtics. The Wizards are most likely going to be a bad team for a while, but a backcourt with Poole and Tyus Jones might keep them afloat, paired with the multitude of future picks they have. Now looking at the Suns, they got one of the better players in the league. However, Beal's contract shows that. Beal is projected to earn $50 million for his last 3 years on his contract. That is if he doesn't opt into his player option. The Suns look absolutely stacked on paper with Beal and Booker at the backcourt and Durant and Ayton in the front. This trade brings another super team in the West to the forefront. The last time Kevin Durant was on a super team was with the Nets, and that didn't go well. The last time he won a championship, he was on the Warriors super team. The Suns have had a pretty good lineup for a couple years now. Everyone thought that the Suns would win the chip this past season due to the trade efforts to get Kevin Durant, but they ended up losing to the Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. Beal will bring another shooter and playmaker to the Suns roster, but that wasn't the issue for the Suns in the playoffs. It was their depth. Besides the main starters, the Suns bench also played horrendously. With bringing Beal, they also ruined the chance of being able to add any notable pieces for their bench. Okay, so obviously this was recorded a little bit after the Watanabe signing, but it was after or before the Eric Bledsoe signing. I think the Suns are doing really good with their moves in free agency. Just my only worry is, will they be able to have these players in the long run to keep on bench and be able to play instead of that main core? Because again, obviously their bench was their main issue against the Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. So I don't think they're going to be able to pay them in the long run. But that's really what I meant. But I think the Suns have been doing really well in free agency as of now. They now have 3 max players under contract, and not to mention Ayton possibly wanting another deal soon. Unless they trade Ayton this season for some depth, I highly doubt the Suns have a future in the next few years after this core is gone. And speaking of cap space, it isn't something that the Suns will have. Starting with Devin Booker. Booker's on his last year of his contract, paying him $36 million per year. He's expected to get a 4-year, $235 million deal after the 2023 to 24 season. Then we have Bradley Beal, who I already said will be getting $150 million approximately during his last 3 years on his contract with the Suns. And if he opts into his 4th-year option, he can earn another $50 million. As for Kevin Durant, he also has 3 years left on his contract, where he will be he will make over $145 million. Ayton also has 3 years on his contract and will make over $100 million. If I was the Suns front office, I would trade Ayton for some depth and picks. With the amount of shot making the roster already has, they won't really need a big name center. We've seen Ayton, has shown lack of effort to get rebounds, so I would have suggested Landale, but they just recently got rid of him. But they do have Yuta Watanabe, who's been a really good rebounder, but he's more of a wing. But I'd say, go get a vet or at least somebody in free agency that could be cheap and would be able to rebound the ball for you. That's a consistent rebounder. I think that'd probably be the best. I mean, you have all these shot makers, but who's going to catch the rebound once they miss the pass or once they miss the shot? So, get a good rebounder. I think they'll be pretty solid. I don't really think they need a big center. With the price that the Suns have in at, I think they could get a really good depth and pick package. I didn't make this video to sound like a Suns hater, even though it may sound like it, but I do want the Suns to win a chip, at least for Bradley Beal's sake. But I do think that this super team ideology for most teams is a tactic that won't last for a long time. If we look at the Denver Nuggets, they don't have a super team, but they still won the championship because they have other playmakers around Jokic and Murray. Depth is slowly becoming less important to these organizations, and I can see a league where it just becomes pay to win. If the Nuggets are able to show the rest of the NBA that you can build a team from the ground up, I think the league will be better to watch for all fans of basketball. I think in general, it's more of who can pay, said player the most, and then that player's gonna go there. And I don't think that that's really the correct way. I mean, we've already seen it. I mean, the Suns weren't able to make the finals, yet the Nuggets were. The Heat were able to make the finals. They're not even a super team. The two teams in the finals weren't even big. They didn't even really have a big three like that, So, I mean, I think a lot of the teams, especially in the West, obviously you're going to have to build some pretty big rosters there to even compete because there's just so many players in the West. But I think that's what a situation where it looks like it may be going to. A lot of teams trying to get the biggest free agent for the most money. And, once they fall off, will they really have much left over? I mean, you've already traded most of these picks to the Wizards, so the Suns don't really have many picks. Like, they don't have first or second round picks for a while. Whereas the Wizards, they're slowly building up their team. I can see, where they could make a pretty good roster, and they've already been making some moves in free agency. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this next free agency cycle. Since yesterday was the first day, still some big names on the board. So, a lot of teams they're going for the entire thing, but I think it's going to be an interesting way to see if the super team ideology is still there, or most of these teams are going to try to build from the ground up. We'll have to look at it. I guess it's kind of easier to say in retrospect, if it works or not, but the Nets super team didn't really work. The Warriors were really one of the first super teams in the modern era super team, like just build your own all-star lineup practically. And obviously the Suns didn't work out. They might work out this season, even though they don't have much depth, and that was really their main problem in the playoffs, the lack of depth, the lack of bench play. So we'll have to see what happens there. But overall, it doesn't really look too good for the future of basketball if we continue going to the super team route, because most teams are going to be running out of picks, and most teams will be running out of a future in the league, and then just be bad for a while until another star pops up. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few years, especially with the Suns expiring contracts by then. So it'll be interesting, but make sure you go ahead and leave a comment down below what you think of the trade, or what the future of the NBA is looking like super team wise. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share, all that. And if you're on the podcast version, make sure you go ahead, leave the podcast a follow and a 5-star review. That'd be greatly appreciated. But other than that, that'll be it for today. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.